Okay, welcome. Oh, Bhavik, could you mute yourself? I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to the second meeting that we have planned. Marie won't be joining us. She's on vacation. She just started today, so she's given feedback on the proposal and everything. So I think we're all set on that. And so first of all, I have to ask. Have you taken a look at the proposal, and do you have any other thoughts on it? I know Huajin hasn't really. I don't know how much she's seen.
Yeah, I haven't had a look at the document. Like you're talking about the Google Drive doc. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got access yet.
Okay. Actually, I have a public version of it.
Is it?
See if I can just pull it up here. Okay. Here's the public version. I have it on GitHub, and so you'll be able to view it.
Okay.
And so that I don't know what's going on with the eLife drive. I think Cora has to manage the permissions there. So
I just sent her an email separately just before the meeting, and hopefully, she'll notice that.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. So I think we're at a good point with the edits, and we still got a lot of feedback.
There's a lot of feedback on somebody's end. Do you have a headset or something?
I don't know why it's doing that. We had problems with the audio previously. Okay. Oh, is it? Okay. So we've gone through a couple of edits. So Marie sent me some edits, and then Bhavik sent some edits, and then this is the product of that. So the next step on this is to send it to Wang, who's going to make it into a formal initiative. So, Huajin, if you want to propose changes to this, you can do so. You can use the GitHub repository. You can, propose changes there. I don't know if you know how to use GitHub or.
Lightly, okay. But I can do that.
All right, and then we can wrap that up and then send it to Wang, and then he'll propose a formal initiative.
Yeah.
And read through it. I think it's a lot clearer than it was last meeting because we had we clarified a number of issues, and I think people will be able to understand it better. What we want to achieve. So we kind of have a couple of goals with the project, and we were trying to come up with a timeline, and so Bhavik kind of laid that out or helped lay it out. And it's still not quite finished, but I think we're getting to the point where we can see, maybe some goals or deadlines in the future. So I kind of approached it when I proposed it initially as sort of an open-ended thing, but I don't know, what we want to do first. I guess it depends on what kind of volunteers we get or how many, people want to take on an initiative or whatever, but we have, I guess the next step is to get the proposal, submitted to Wang, and then he'll make it into a formal initiative. And then we can see, people are interested in participating, and then what kinds of things we can focus on.
So, quick question on the timeline. When I was laying it out, I kind of assumed that there would be one long webinar sort of thing that covers a lot of the topics. Is that a fair assumption, or would you think more than one webinar touching one topic at a time rather than have a big one right at the end? So which one would you prefer?
Well, I think that we can do like multiple webinars. We have a couple of different aims. So, I mean, from what I was getting the feeling of, there are actually two sort of foci. There's kind of an education component, and then kind of a, sort of a, practice component, developing, some sort of maybe data structure or whatever. We still haven't decided exactly what it's going to look like, but so there are two things there, and then we might like break it up into two parts, and like have things revolving around those aims. Um, I wouldn't try to like jam everything into one webinar. If you want an example of how people are doing this, I work with the reproducibility for everybody or everyone group, and they do workshops at different universities. They go around to different universities around the world and they give these workshops. And the way they approach it is they have like one main presentation, and then they also have like other resources like posters and talks that are separate. So they're on specific topics, reproducibility topics. And so, they use all of those resources in the workshops. They kind of mix and match. So when people, they want to put on a workshop, they can download, the main talk, which has everything in it, or they can download little topics. And so that seems to work well for them because you get people with different aims, different types of expertise. And so I don't know how we might envision this going. I mean, there might be something we might want to do it differently than that, just simply because of the topic. But
So one of the things that I was really excited about is the idea of badge lists that I think we briefly touched upon and is part of the proposal and so on. Has there been a previous webinar on that either from you or from somebody else?
well, actually, I have some slides I have a talk on it. I work in an organization, the Open Worm Foundation, and we have Chi Lee, who's one of the people in that organization. He's actually the person who got me into Badgelist, and he actually prepared a short set of slides in a webinar. It's like a flash talk. It's like about 7 or 8 minutes long on how he's used it. And so I don't have the link right here, but it's actually, his talk is in the folder that we have with the proposal in it. So
the badge list, is it for the people who are taking the workshop, or what is for like, or are we endorsing like some sort of a activity?
So badge list is, I have to give you some background on this. Last meeting we talked about this. So one component of this is envisioned to be education. And so education includes a lot of things. It could include like a webinar series. It could include like, one of the things that we can do though is to create these micro credentials. And so badge list is a way to do that. A micro credential, if you think about it, like I want to learn some very specific skills in a niche area. We give people like a bunch of assignments. We lay it out for them, maybe, we walk them through some procedure, or we give them some questions to answer, do some research, not too onerous, but just enough to demonstrate their skills in it.
Yeah, so basically it's like sort of a small subset of activities that they completed.
They just do a small amount of work and they get some micro credential, and you can link them together so you can have like, a couple of badges, and it gives them some competence in an area.
And that would be issued from eLife?
Actually, a badge list has their own issues from there. I don't know. We might work with eLife if they're interested in doing that. They might sponsor. Like, they don't have their own system though.
So one of the reasons I brought up the badge list thing is what I was wondering is if that were to be one of the first sort of presentations from our group. then the subsequent presentations could be geared in such a manner as to have a small component at the end of the webinar that would allow people to get a badge, so to speak. And so whether it's through eLife or through one of the other organizations that's currently implementing it, it might provide a structure, an introduction to the group, might be helpful in getting more people excited about the ideas that we are discussing here, and then take it forward from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think. I mean, yeah, we could definitely include the different components. So like a webinar and then like badge list. I think the main idea here is to keep people sort of engaged in this, and make this useful for people. I mean, basically,
I like the idea of having badges. I just sort of I wanted to think about the logistics of doing that, but yeah, seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
There's a couple of the other ideas that I think you mentioned were about basic GitHub skills for folks and so on. So if we had introduced the idea of badges first up, and then we had this GitHub presentation, we could include a little bit of I don't know what to say, a little bit of a homework assignment, so to speak. And then once folks went through the steps and demonstrated some proficiency with the basics, that could be the first batch that they earn, and so on, and we can take it forward from there.
Yeah.
So for the GitHub, like there are existing courses like the software carpentry, right, that people can take to gain those kind of that's just an example.
Well, we have I mean, basically just I think to get people like in the eLife ambassadors, you have a mix of skills. So some people don't really know what GitHub is, and some people probably work with it a lot. And then just to get them kind of ramped up to a very basic level of doing version control is really what we were going to focus on, because doing collaborations, and of course with data you want to have you want to be able to have that skill as well. So but yeah, we would probably farm out, if people wanted to do more, we'd tell them, okay, there's a software carpentry course, so you can do this.
This list, the documentation so far looks pretty good to me. I think it's a little ambitious depending on how much on each bullet point we want to work on, right? For example, if we want to just start with one webinar, one workshop, that's doable. And if we want to have a series, that's more challenging.
Yeah.
That was part of the motivation why I put only one webinar on the timeline, to keep it, a little bit under wraps.
Yeah, looks pretty good. One basic question I have, obviously I missed last meeting, but what's the reason that we are using the terminology data recycling instead of data reuse?
Well, I mean, I guess the idea is to get people to not only to reuse data, but I guess to use it, in multiple contexts. I guess we could switch it to data reuse. Which one do you think is more in line with the?
I mean, the term I'm familiar with is data reuse, but for recycling, I haven't heard a lot of it. But I don't really know the difference. But for recycling, for me, is sort of has the sense of there's something that the data producer you don't need the data producer doesn't need anymore. You put out for others to recycle. Oh. But instead, for reuse, I think there's a component for everybody can use it. That's my understanding, but I don't know the official.
Yeah.
I think part of the motivation for the recycling was also to sort of highlight that the same data sets could be used with different objectives for people from different fields, and it was with this abstract notion that people from other fields might also be interested in data sets collected for studies in a given field. Maybe too abstract, maybe too broad, but at least that was part of the motivation.
Yeah, but I don't think that makes a distinction of recycle or reuse. Yeah, we can maybe ask more people about like which terminology people prefer.
Yeah.
So the conference I just hosted for AI for data reuse is exactly like what you described. People kind of from all different fields might have a different kind of data. They kind of came together, sort of talk about how to. Of course, there's a lot of AI components to it, but like the general idea is like people talk about a lot about how to use the data that other people produce, like even from the different fields. And then like in the end, actually, the consensus is sort of, AI is only the last step of everything. So until we have the good quality data and the data that's kind of have all these characteristics that's able to be reused, AI cannot do much. That's sort of, a nice thought.
That's an excellent point that you bring up. I think that was part of the reason why some of the conversation during the last call was also dedicated to discussing some sort of framework that would encourage people to package their data in a format that made it easier to use. And then at least I don't know, you are an expert on this, so maybe you can speak a little bit more authoritatively on this. But at least as outsiders, we felt that if we went for community feedback on sort of data packaging standards for individual communities, individual fields, then we could sort of encourage groups to follow these data packaging guidelines, and that way make sure that at least all the newer data sets that are generated follow a specific set of guidelines, making it easier for future reuse.
Yeah, so like at first I'm not an expert on this because I'm a biologist myself. I just entered the library world like maybe 2 years ago and started to thinking about all these issues. So yeah, my background is cell biologist. So in terms of data standards, it's a whole mess. Like I don't think anybody has like very well defined data standards. There's a sort of some so standard metadata fields that you can use, but they are very broad. They're not really good enough for the subject specific data. So when we're talking, like I'm assuming we're talking about the data related to life sciences, right? That's often up to the community to like. What I see things evolving is like the community come together, like kind of work out a sort of data standards. That's exactly what happens in the genomics, right? They have like the big center kind of initiatives to work on this. But that being said, like that's like there are also for us, we can, if we identify the areas that we want to come up with a set of standards in, that we can focus on that area. I think that's a lot of I guess a good place to start is come up with a list of what the existing standards are already there. But even that, I think, is a huge list. There are some organizations like RDA. Do you guys know the Research Data Alliance? Yeah, RDA. What are the background for you guys? You're both biologists.
Well, I'm bioinformatics and biology. So
okay.
Yeah, and Bhavik is.
I'm a biomedical engineer / mechanical engineer by training, but work on biophysics applications. So mostly microscopy, nanotech applications in biology.
Okay, yeah. So like the Research Data Alliance, they have like basically a collection of researchers and the data experts together. Last thing I saw was not so much about data standards. Last thing I saw was like there are some nice efforts coming together for the data citation actually. So I like the idea of like topical review. I think topical review looks like a more involved effort. Like what aspect were you thinking of review?
I think probably. I mean, we could focus it on a number of things. I think maybe the existing standards or like something like that might be useful. Just to get a sense. I think probably mainly used as a community resource, but also to sort of guide where some of the other efforts go. So I mean, we had talked about like actually doing a survey of community members, and but it's kind of like how do you design the survey, and what do you want once you get the data from the survey? How do we put that together?
Yeah, I think that's like existing standards would be a good good field to look into. I think for the topical review. I don't know how much of there are some existing literature out there. I think a reference list wouldn't be a huge effort, but it's hard to be all inclusive, right? It's hard. Like, I mean, we don't have an exhaustive list.
Yeah.
So I feel like we need to thinking about the actionable items. I feel like I really like the bullet points you have over here. But thinking about actions, I feel like we need to maybe focus on one of the outstanding questions we need to tackle first.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you guys think?
Bhavik?
Sorry, can you, I was having some audio issues. Huajin, just going back, I mean, there are really two questions here, right? One is prioritization in terms of the list of tasks that we have. But another point is that I think the language got a little bit updated on this. On the timeline, one of the things that I had done was kept sort of a task list where if we had a larger number of participants in the initiative, we could tackle a couple of additional tasks. But with 3 or 4 people that with the resources that we currently have, we probably want to be a little bit more realistic in terms of number of goals that we set first up.
Right.
At the moment, this could be a little bit of a starter's bias. But I was thinking that given Bradley's expertise on or knowledge on batch lists and so on, sort of a quick short presentation on that might garner us a slightly wider audience, and then B, presumably get people excited about follow-up topics that are going to be discussed. So just in terms of maximum bang for the limited time that we have, starting with that might get us more people in, and then depending on sort of the feedback that we get from that, we can sort of either shorten or lengthen the list of tasks that we have. Is that a fair place to start, Bradley? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should start with what we can do, like, so maybe the low-hanging fruit. So definitely something that would get more people involved. Maybe like, basic sort of level, what can we do with maybe 3 or 4 people? What's like the blog post is a good first step because it lays out a lot of sort of vision, but it makes it a little bit more explicit. So the blog post we could like spend, we could write it however we wanted, but I think the smart way to do it would be just to like hit maybe one or two things that we can really contribute and just lay them out in detail. And then, the community can see that and they can say, oh yeah, I want to do that. I can contribute to that. Having like the webinars, I think is a good idea to base it on something that people can participate in, getting people involved. So, I mean, stuff that we can really kind of do that doesn't take a lot of work, but like can lead to the next steps. I think that's the way to
go. So, quick question here: do you think there's enough material on a badge list sort of thing to have a full webinar, or do you think that could be one of our first topics that we blog about, kind of provide a lay of the land, give a schedule of topics on which 2 or 3 webinars are going to happen over the next year or so, and sort of give the community an opportunity to sort of think about, hey, these are a couple of topics that I would be interested in, and maybe I could also, get some micro credential for it. So that sounds like a good deal. So is it more amenable to a blog format, or better to be presented in a sort of webinar sort of way?
Well, I think we can keep the blog post and the webinar separate. I mean, we can integrate them like, we could do the webinars and then reference them in the blog post. But the blog post, we could do it so that we have, it's more sort of maybe detail oriented. Like the webinar, you want to like kind of go through maybe like it may be better for like instruction or like, how to do this, or, it's kind of hard to really get very granular in a webinar, but not so much in a blog post. On the other hand, you want to have like, you want to go back to maybe some more interactive references to keep people reading your blog post. You don't want to have like a 3,000 word block of text with no pictures in a blog post. So we want to make it so that people will want to participate. But I think we should have like, we want to keep like, keep them separate but not entirely separate. I think we can do it on the same timeline, and I think that's up to you guys too. Like,
yeah, you're saying like there are webinars. There's also some existing ones we can recycle, right? We can reuse. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, I think the batch list would be I agree with the blog post and batch list and with webinars. I think what's also we can build up as we go is the resources page, including references, including the links to different initiatives, and also like webinars, slides.
Okay.
But I don't know what would be a good place to host this. Probably the GitHub page, right?
Yeah. So let's see.
We might have a chicken and an egg problem there. Like Bradley pointed out, some people are either new or unfamiliar with GitHub. And then, so do we do the GitHub presentation first? So, we can assume that everybody is on the same page, and then the information on GitHub, or the other way around. So that might be a little catch-22 situation there.
Yeah. I mean, well, depending on how, what's the purpose of the resource page? Is this something that we put together, or do we ask people to contribute, right? Or they could also live in the Google Drive. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think the most democratic approach would be to allow people to contribute to resources, right? I mean, we could all benefit from different viewpoints. So maybe keeping it open to everyone is the best approach. And then, like Huajin correctly pointed out, that since most people, though not Huajin yet, have access to the Google Drive, maybe we can keep it on the drive, and that way, I'm not sure. I think it's not too imposing to assume that people are familiar with the Google Drive and would be able to edit documents. I think there was a question early on in the program where they asked if there were people from places where they didn't have access to Google, and I don't think anybody said they don't have access to Google. So presumably, if the document lives on Google Docs, Google Drive, people may be able to edit, read, whatever.
Yeah, so I guess depending on like the permission we give to people, like for example, like I wasn't able to access the team document because of the email alias issue, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did in the reproducibility for everybody thing, we have a number of different ways people can contribute. So like there are different ways people might feel comfortable contributing. Some people like to use GitHub. Some people like to just use Google Docs. Some people might feel more comfortable submitting like in a form. We could make actually a Google form that would allow people to submit things.
Right.
And then
somebody has to maintain that, right?
Yeah, there is a maintenance issue, but there has to be some moderation too, because people will submit just anything, and it's like, well, is this something that we, how do we want to, do we want to include it because it might be something that isn't relevant, or it might be something that we want to sort. So there's going to be that sort of curation aspect, but I think having different methods of contribution will be, I think, most inclusive. So yeah, I'm okay with putting it on the Google Drive. I think that'll work.
Yeah, I guess for now. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
And then before we run out of time, I know, excuse me, Cora said there's a meeting right after ours. But one of the other points on the timeline was sort of a blog post introducing people with the idea of having community standards defined for data packaging. Yeah. And so just to recap our conversation from the previous call, the idea there was, in a hypothetical scenario, what if at least eLife and possibly other journals put out a call for community feedback for data standard for a given field, and then periodically updated it so that all the journals that were a member of the group were following those guidelines. And these guidelines get updated periodically. I don't know, every 3 years, every 5 years, whatever. But these guidelines would be only useful if there was a period for community to provide their feedback on, and then if journals held all submitted data sets to the agreed upon standard. And so one of the ideas was to sort of provide some examples of this and to put together a blog post that introduces people to this idea, and then look for feedback on what's gauging the interest on something like this. Do you have any comments on that, Huajin?
So my question would be, what community we're talking about? Because like for data packaging for microscopy data would be very different from the genomics data, from like mass spectrometry data, right?
That's a great question, and so the guidelines would be data set specific. So microscopy data would have a different sort of guideline versus genomics data have a different sort of guideline. And again, if people somehow find that a given set of guidelines are not the most user friendly, they are getting updated frequently, and so it's not that once they are set in stone, but at least for a period of time they are set in stone. That way we know what sort of data sets will be submitted and will be available for downstream reuse.
So we're talking about having people to submit their data to.
When they submit it to a journal, it would be in a specific format. So, for example, a lot of microscopy companies these days have proprietary image standards, and that makes it quite hard. But just as an example, I'm not saying this should be the guideline, but if the guideline was that all your datasets that were submitted were to be submitted in 16-bit TIFF formats, you could play around with your proprietary format, but when you submit your data set to a central repository, it would be your responsibility to convert it into 16-bit TIFF formats before you submit them. So your responsibility is what format is the data set submitted in, not necessarily what format you collect the data in.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a very good. That would be a very good effort if we can pull this together. Because like
I didn't mean we were the ones who would put the guidelines together. We would just get the information and the idea out there, and then individual communities would come together, and this would be sort of an open platform where, for a period of time they would propose that, everybody of us is happy with the 16-bit TIFF format versus people being happy with I don't know, PNG or some other format, and then they could decide upon whether they agreed to it or not. And again, if they get it wrong, that's fine, because it would be updated every 5 years or whatever. Because and maybe I'm getting into the weeds with just one example, but because I have a little bit of familiarity, and perhaps you do as well, with data sets, with all these modern day microscopy techniques really exploding. I was just reading this paper that came out in Science not too long ago, where they claimed that data set was 780 terabytes. And so basically, essentially what that means is, first of all, most labs do not have the computational resources necessary to go back and check their work, their claims, right? But also, as a follow-up, if it weren't submitted in a standard format, other labs would just have to spend a lot of resources to get it in a format that would be amenable to whatever workflows that they have before they even start checking that work. And so this makes it hard. And so if there were a guideline that said, hey, you know what, great paper, you guys did a great job. Now all that data that you have submitted into a repository, and to their credit, they are making it available. But if it mandated them to make it available in a certain format, then that would make it easier for follow-up work, right?
Yeah. This is a very outstanding problem that's out there. So a workshop that I recently attended is a specialized data curation workshop, right? There's a data curation network, I think, hosted by Johns Hopkins. They're basically talking about all these issues, like if a specialized data set, and I'm with a few others we're working on actually just the curation standard, coming up with the curation workflow for confocal images. So the problem is like first understand what the data formats we're talking about. Like with all these, like, do we want to convert everything to a TIFF? And the question then we need to ask is whether TIFF is enough for most people to reuse the data, right? And then the community need to come up with a consensus for this. And on the other hand, like community is also, like the scientists are not only the ones using the data, and for the data repository, the curators need to be able to understand your data, and then what information need to go in there to for both scientists and for the curators to understand this is another problem. I think that would be a very good discussion to have for the community, but focusing on what do I need to be able to use the data, and for, like you said, the confocal, like imaging data, like what stage of the data do I want to share? If I want to just share the small sets, or do I want to share the entire raw data, which often is not useful, right? I think the discussion is, how often do you actually go back to somebody's raw data, like entire data set too? And also important question, whether often the raw data are not annotated, right?
Yeah.
Those are fantastic points that you identify. Just before we run out of time, I think a couple of points. One is, I think you're right in that in a vast majority of the cases, one never cares about going back to all the raw data and going through the steps and so on. The couple of things there is I think you previously brought up a really nice point about reusing data, and so if people from other fields wanted to reuse it and ask different set of questions, having access to that sort of raw data would at least lower the barrier a little bit for them to get started. And the second thing is that if that is not the community consensus, and if they want only sort of the data set that is in the final publication rather than all that about it, and that's fine, right? I mean, they can agree upon whatever set of guidelines that they like, and then to me, one of the ulterior motives with pursuing this is, for instance, if the period that the community agrees upon is, say, 5 years at a time, right? So whatever guidelines are set up are there for 5 years before they get updated. Then there is perhaps a little bit of an incentive for even commercial entities to sort of have a one-button data conversion included in their software. And so, for example, all the data sets that you collect, even though they exist in a proprietary format, when you do collect that data set, by the time you are ready for publication and you say, hey, these 100 or 200 images or videos are the ones that I want to deposit to a central repository, it's a one button thing that says, oh, these are the current community standards, whether it's TIFF or something else. So, click that, select all the files, it automatically converts, and then it makes the life of the user that much easier. Assuming the community standard is followed by all the journals, and there is some incentive for the proprietary microscope developers to put in an effort to make it as easy as that. And then if the frequency is low enough, right, it's once every 5 years or 7 years or whatever, then it's not that much work for a commercial entity to have this data conversion be included. And then the deepest victory in this, if we can call it that, would be if they made this conversion so nice that not just the raw data, but all the metadata and sort of other things are also included. Then basically the user does not have to go through and become a computer expert on data curation and so on. It's just that, oh, I have this microscope, it has this data conversion for my final step, and I can just do it. I really don't have to go through the rigor of figuring things out by myself. Just use an off-the-shelf solution. So that may be the most ideal outcome.
Yeah.
So I had a point about so I think we could facilitate this through eLife so eLife has aside from the ambassadors program, they have like a technology group, and then they have like a sort of a community in and of the journal. So I mean, I would definitely say go to Cora and see if she can facilitate something for us in that department, because I think that there's a pretty big community within just an eLife where you have people publishing and people who have connections. So we should definitely investigate that, because actually there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in the technology area where they're developing like different plugins and tools, and so standards actually are probably well within that. I don't know how to facilitate it exactly, but I think you'll have enough expertise, maybe even outside the ambassadors program, to make it easy to get some feedback. So
yeah, I can imagine that eLife already has their own data standards. Yeah,
I don't know if the state is, but
then again, maybe every journal has one. So,
that's kind of the problem, right? If everybody has a standard, that basically is not a standard.
No. Exactly.
So we'll see. So I guess before we go, I guess all of you accepted the invitation to the Trello board. So I just wanted to talk about that. So the Trello board is something I set up the other day so we can keep track of issues. I think that's going to be important as we go along and we try to make these things real.
Yeah.
If anyone has any issues they want to put on the Trello board, and I think everyone's familiar with how to use a Trello board.
So just a quick note on that. If I remember correctly, that was a private Trello board.
Do I need to make it public or?
The only question that I had was if we want general feedback. I'm not sure if.
I didn't know.
Maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know.
Well,
So I think the current way it's set up is only people with an invitation can see it, but not otherwise. And then two follow-ups if you were if you agreed that it could be public, that would be nice. And then the other thing is if we could include like a link to it on our initiative page or whatever, so people were up to speed with where to go.
yeah, I think that would be good. So yeah, let me make board public. Invite or make a part of public invite. Yeah, I'll figure out how to do that. But yeah, I think that's
Or
good.
if you don't feel comfortable, I'm sure Quora has a list of all the ambassadors. We could just share it with the ambassadors, so only ambassadors had access and not like really general public. But however you feel comfortable doing.
Or we could even invite them as like people express interest. I don't know if we just want people putting any like issue on the board. Like if if someone's working on something, the point is just to basically like make deadlines and keep things like sort of in boxes so that we actually get things done and mark them off. I mean, other than that, I think that's between that and GitHub, and then we'll have the Google Doc. We'll set things up on Google Docs. So the folder that I shared before, I think we can use that as a place to host like contributions as well. So we'll set that up.
Right.
So
and before we end this, should we say we roughly do a call every last week of every month?
yeah, we could do that. Yeah.
Is that more or less or like?
Yeah, sure, we can try. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I want to just circle back to the like data recycling versus reuse. I did quick reality check. I think it's data reuse is more of a standard terminology, and then the grants from NSF from all these funding agencies, they also like use data reuse.
Okay.
Sure, we can stick to standard terminology.
We can change that. Okay. So yeah, I guess we'll meet next month, and then we'll keep in touch on Discourse, and we'll set the time up at the end of next month. So
sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Any other things? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.